Hi, I'm Renard from Tangello Fox, and today I'm going to be showing you the beautiful Belmar Park here in Lakewood, Colorado. I'm going to be doing a test with the Sony FX6 and just sort of looking around, seeing if I can find any wildlife, anything fun, as well as just sort of testing some of the settings, including the digital zoom, because I'm not that familiar with the digital zoom on this camera. It is a 6K sensor that can cut down to a 4K, so theoretically should be pretty good. But, you know, as well as kind of handheld footage and various things. So we'll take a quick look and see what we can find. Enjoy. So here we have the first test, just sort of shaking and a few different ways. Handheld with the sling still around me, and then without it. Without it was clearly a little bit better. Then I tried tucking the actual rig under my arm, and it really didn't help that much. This is only holding it by the top handle, which isn't great. Bunny! I didn't get much time with the bunny. This is kind of more for fidelity. There's a bunch of grasshoppers here that kept moving as I walked around, so... You know, see how many of them you can spot. There's quite a few. I did spot these really pretty flower things. I don't want to call them flowers themselves because they were like these pods that had a bunch of little purple flowers on them. Shows up a little bit more here in the next shot, in which I was following a bee. I want to say a bumblebee. It was pretty big. But yeah, it looks like they're like these little pods with like a bunch of little purple flowers, and I don't know if they hadn't bloomed yet or if they had already bloomed and fallen off, but they look like they would have thousands of these flowers for each of these little pods. It was really neat. Now I think this is a pill bug. I'm honestly not sure, but it was just, you know, being a bug. Now this park has a really pretty lake, and I just kind of wanted to get just a slow panning shot of what the lake looks like. Obviously, this would be something I should have done with a tripod with a fluid head instead of standing around holding the camera by hand. Because as you can see, it is super shaky and just kind of going all over the place. But, you know, fool me once, shame on me anyway. Now, up next here, pretty confident that's a bird. Just, you know, fairly sure. I looked it up. I believe that it's a fox squirrel. Not 100%. I hung around these birds for a little while, just sort of watching them, and it was kind of neat. It was far enough that it wasn't disturbing the nest. They're underneath a canopy. You actually saw it in the lake shot. Isn't that kind of cool? Bird would just come in, give them a little bit of food, and then disappear. Also, look at this dragonfly. Just thought it was really cool how like translucent the wings are and stuff. Now these are some sort of birds, but lots of them. With bird sounds. It was really hard to capture all these birds that were flying around. There's like a bird perch at this place. Now remember, we must not build a bridge, but someone clearly did, and it came out pretty cool. This is like a little, they called it a walking bridge, which, I mean, I would assume most bridges are to a certain degree, but this bridge was going over the edge of the lake, I want to say on the north end, and it's kind of cool, it's kind of pretty. As you can see, my footage, you know, on handheld is still a little bit shaky. I'm going to be attempting to use a Steadicam rig in the future, because this definitely wasn't cutting it as far as moving. I might see about trying to stabilize, but realistically I'm trying to get better footage to begin with, that way my editing doesn't take as long, since I have found in the past editing is really the part that I dislike the most. Now I want to say that's a crane. Just sort of caught it, you know, mid-flight. Similarly to these hummingbirds. Now, I filmed this at 120 frames per second. It is being presented to you in 60 frames per second, so just imagine how fast they were going, you know, by comparison. These little things were very, very quick. There were quite a few of them, and they kept looking like they were licking the tips of the pine, which I didn't know they could get anything out of, but I don't know, maybe there's like a little flower or some sort of sap or something in there. I'm honestly not super sure. Now, up next, we have a squirrel! This squirrel actually hung out relatively visibly. It was a little bit of a curious thing. I didn't want to get super close. I also didn't have my telephoto lens with me, so this is all being filmed at right around 70 millimeters. So not particularly high zoom, unfortunately. but I felt like I got a good enough view of it. Gonna crop into it a little bit, so to you it'll probably look a little bigger than the full thing, but either way, I think squirrels are adorable. If I recall correctly, this could be a rock squirrel, based on what I looked up, but I didn't see any of them on a rock, so my money's on eastern fox squirrel, which is of course not a type of fox. This little thing was being super cute, obviously, you know, aware of me the entire time, but I don't think people really harm the animals at this park, so they're probably relatively accustomed to, you know, human beings being around them. Now, this little squirrel did start moving around a little more, and I've always thought the little jumps squirrels do between branches and stuff are just super cute, but as a result, I went from standing in place to, you know, kind of walking while aiming the camera, and while the path itself was fairly clean, the, you know, walking with a camera was kind of a pain, especially because this is not a particularly light rig, and I don't have that strong of an arm, at least in terms of basically anything, so when I was walking around, by this point about, my arms were starting to feel it. I was already getting a little tired, and while, you know, it's not too bad while I'm just carrying it, in this case I was aiming up, which, you know, holding your camera above your head is really tiring, so obviously I'm gonna need to see about doing something to help mitigate the weight of the camera, especially for longer shoots like these, you know, squirrel shots. But see, wasn't that adorable? Whee! There's Broccoli, being a cat. She will join us from time to time on the voiceovers. Now, as I'm sure you noticed, I basically didn't keep any of the audio. Pretty much none of the audio was particularly entertaining. Yeah, not much I can do about that, really. Most animals, you know, this isn't a TV show or a movie. Most animals actually avoid making noise whenever they can, outside of actually trying to communicate with each other, because, you know, snarling at your prey will make it realize you're there and leave. Similarly, chittering at a predator might tell it that you're there, and then you get eaten. But yeah, this part the squirrel came up and was kind of looking at me. So this is a digital zoom test, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, so this is going to be just sort of, I want to see what the fidelity looks like between optical and digital zoom. Obviously optical's always better, but the camera does offer about a 1.5x crop, because that's effectively what it is a crop, is just still recording in 4K, but I don't know, I feel like that still looks pretty good. So maybe I'll utilize that. Anyways, thank you for watching, and yeah, we'll see you next time.